Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video, doing JMA Friday for today's first video. So as I was on a Friday, we're having a detailed look at the weather for the coming month with Japanese and CFS V2 models coming up later on. This afternoon we will have your regular week's 10-day video update, including all of the usual features. So let's start off with the JMA 500 millibar high dummies for the next 4 weeks, and then we'll have a look at the CFS V2 and we'll compare the two and see what they're showing. So this is the Arctic North Pole view of the Northern Hemisphere for week 1. This is taking us from the 4th to the 11th of October, looking from the North Pole view down into the mid-latitudes. The brighter colours, yellow, orange and red, extrapolating to high pressure, and the darker colours, the blues, extrapolating to low pressure. As I say, these are broken down into week periods, so the first week period will take us from today, the 4th, through to the 11th of October. So the coming week has an area of above average height sitting over Greenland, quite a large sort of blocking area of high pressure up there with low pressure underneath it. So we've got low pressure down here through the Atlantic into northern parts of Europe, and then another ridge down towards Spain and Portugal. It's quite a complicated pattern. Normally when you've got that sort of level of northern blocking, you won't have high pressure over Spain, so it's a bit of a complicated pattern. But in any case, the jet stream is coming through like that, and it looks very unsettled in the week ahead. Low pressure will be with us, bringing regular bouts of rain and possibly even some strong winds as well. Temperatures probably about average. Then we go through to week 2, and it's still looking pretty unsettled here. Really very little change overall. Above average heights around the North Atlantic into Greenland, extending back in towards the Arctic. Below average heights as a trough over much of northern and northwestern Europe. Still this ridge going on through Spain and into Mediterranean. Jet stream is pushed southwards like that. So again, it's an unsettled week coming up here from the 11th to the 18th of October. More bouts of rain would be likely. Maybe a little bit cooler as well, because it looks like the centre of the trough is actually more slightly to our east-northeast, which would probably start to allow some cooler air to move into that trough of low pressure from the north. So if anything, that could be a rather cooler signal, but it would still be unsettled. And then we're through to weeks 3 and 4, taking us from the 18th of October to the 1st of November. This is looking like a very, very unsettled October now. Been a long time since we've had such an unsettled October as this. If it comes off, though, we really are looking at quite a wet, unsettled month. The trough of low pressure is still there pretty much over the top of the UK. The ridge across Spain is also weakening and going away. And we've still got this blocking signal up towards Greenland, extending back into the Arctic. So, if anything, as the weeks are going by here, I think the jet stream is probably shifting further and further south, if anything. So, we could be pulling in some quite cold air by the end of the month into that trough of low pressure, I would have thought. The only saving grace, possibly, for not becoming all that cold is that the low pressure, the trough, is sort of in the Atlantic and into the UK, rather than being over the UK and extending to our east. So that probably just about manages to keep the wind in from the west, but I think the jet stream is probably being pushed a bit south here, and with this blocking signal, I wouldn't totally rule out a chance of pulling in some colder air into that trough of low pressure. It looks cool and unsettled to me this October, based on what the JMA is showing. This is the tropical and mid-latitude view. So on this particular view, the UK is in the top right-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. We've got the Arctic up here, and it's off the chart, but we don't need to see that because we've already had a look at that view. So in the week ahead, again, this is taking us from the 4th through to the 11th of October, we have the high pressure down towards Spain. Low pressure is in the Atlantic and extending into the UK and also into much of northern Europe like that. Jet stream coming right through the country. So it looks unsettled in the week ahead. Temperature anomalies are being forecast to be above average from the JMA. I'm not sure it's going to be that significantly above average in the week ahead. I'd go for nearer normal temperatures, really. And it looks unsettled. Precipitation anomalies are coming out substantially above average, particularly so for the north, but all areas really in for a wetter than average week. Then we're into week 2, taking us through the middle of the month, middle of October. It's the 11th to the 18th of October, with below average heights again centred as a trough over top of the country, extending to our east as well. Still that ridge down towards Spain and blocking up to the north and the northwest. So still looking really quite unsettled. Temperature anomalies are a little bit lower, probably still a little bit on the above average side, but less so than in week 1. And it's still unsettled. Precipitation anomalies are still forecast to be above average. Of course, you'd expect the trough of low pressure centred right over top of the country. And then weeks 3 and 4 takes us from the 18th of October to the 1st of November, and low pressure is in over the top of the country. We can't see Greenland, but we know there's a ridge up towards here. And the high pressure down towards Spain and Portugal is weakening as well, which leads me to think that the jet stream over time is probably being pushed further and further south. The temperature anomaly is still forecast to be average to slightly above average, and the precipitation anomaly is still above average too, wetter than average. October coming up here could be a very wet month, actually. Could be a long time since we've had such a wet October. Maybe you have to go back to 2012 for the last time you had such a wet October as this, if the forecast comes off. Big if, of course, but you'll probably have to go back to 2012, maybe even further back than that. I can't remember the last time you had a really wet October before that, maybe 2004. Certainly over the past decade or more, wet Octobers have been pretty rare, I think. So quite unusual what the JMA is showing here for October. But of course it could be wrong. Let's see how much support it has from the CFS V2. So again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period takes us from the 4th through to the 10th of October. The coming week, again, virtually identical between the 2 miles. We've got blocking up to our north between Greenland and Svalbard. We've got high pressure also down towards Spain, with low pressure in between from the Atlantic into the UK, and a deep trough with quite cold air embedded within it, extending through the eastern and northeastern part of Europe. It looks unsettled, very unsettled, with low pressure driving in from off the Atlantic. Not overly mild for us, but the coldest weather is in northeastern parts of Europe. Week 2 is the 11th to the 17th of October. Trough of low pressure then extends out over and to the east of us. So again, that's in agreement with what the JMA was showing. High pressure as a mid-Atlantic ridge extending back to northern blocking around Greenland, going further north of that. So it's still unsettled. The only difference is that we're pulling in, or we should be pulling in, colder air from the north, as we have the trough to our east of a ridge out to our west-northwest. The squeeze of the wind should pull the wind down from the north. So that's cold and unsettled, I think, for the middle part of October. Week 3 is the 18th to the 24th of October. Trough of low pressure. Again, it's sort of extending through the north and west of Europe. Again, we've still got this hint of a mid-Atlantic ridge extending back to some northern blocking. The high pressure signals to our northwest are weaker here, but the broad pattern still seems to be more or less the same, so we expect that to be cool and unsettled again. I would have thought potentially quite wet. And then we go through to week 4. Bit of a change here. This is the 25th of October to the 31st to Halloween. And the difference here, still unsettled. Low pressure is in control, but it's sort of to the north and to the west of us, with a ridge strengthening down towards Spain. And the upshot with that is that we would start to pull the winds in from west, possibly a little bit from the southwest. So that would still be unsettled. Even for the final week of October, you would still be looking at quite a bit of rain with that, but temperatures will probably get a boost, and we will probably end October and what is actually forecast to be quite a cool October, I think, overall, but we've probably aimed it on a relatively mild note. These are how the temperature anomaly is looking from CFS V2 for the next 4 weeks. So again, this is the 4th to the 10th of October. The coming week is slightly milder than average. Again, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure it's going to be overly mild, really, in the weekend. I would suspect temperatures will be quite close to average overall. It does look very cold, though, over in the east and the northeast of Europe and into western Russia. Really cold temperature anomalies over there. Then we go through to week 2, and this looks like a cooler week as that trough of low pressure shifts over to our east and we extend the mid-Atlantic ridge up to Greenland. We find the temperature anomaly for us is close to, possibly even hinting at being a bit below average. Certainly central parts of Europe and Western Europe are being forecast to be below average with the temperature anomaly. That's the 11th to 17th of October. Could be quite a cool week. And another pretty cool week for week 3. This is the 18th, 24th of October. And again, temperature anomalies are below average here. Not just for the UK, but again, for much of Central, and we can't see Scandinavia, but almost certainly Northern Europe as well. Then things go milder in week 4. This is the 25th of October to the 31st. And then the temperature anomaly is going above average as the wind direction switches from sort of northwest to north to west-southwest. Obviously, that starts to pull in much milder air from off the Atlantic. So we aimed what is quite a cool October on a relatively mild note. Then finally, precipitation. So this is week 1 precipitation anomalies from CFS V2. Takes us from the 4th to the 10th of October. Again, it's wetter than average. A wetter than average week is forecast there. Week 2 is the 11th to the 17th of October. It's not quite as wet, actually, as what JMA is showing. So sort of average to possibly a little bit above average with rainfall, but it's not quite as unsettled. That's as the trough is shifting to the east of us, of course. Weakening signal for week 3. This is the 18th to 24th of October. Close to average with precipitation there. And then week 4 goes wetter than average again. That's a strong signal for week 4. Normally, weeks 3 and 4, the signals are very, very weak for precipitation on all long-range models. But that's substantially wetter than average for week 4. So this does look like a very unsettled and overall pretty cool October being forecast here. As I say, you probably have to go back to 2012 for the last time we had as wet an October as this, maybe even further back than that, something like 2004. So it's been quite a long time since we had a really wet October, but it does look as though that's the way model output is trending in terms of the JMA and the CFS day. I think out of the two, the JMA is the wettest, a little bit less so for the CFS, but they are both signaling really quite an unsettled month and quite a cool month as well, a little bit surprisingly, perhaps. Could October be our first cooler than average month of the year? First cold than average month of the year. It's very early days on that, but certainly between these two models, you wouldn't rule out the chance that that could happen. In fact, it could be quite probable that this will be our first colder than average month of the year. So an interesting October coming up, a bit of a deviation from what we've been used to in October over the past few years, which have tended to be quite warm and have lingering warmth, certainly into the first half of the month anyway. But remember, it's just a snapshot of what these models are showing, so it could all look very different next week. It's just a snapshot of what they're showing today, but they are prone to dramatic changes, of course, as is any sort of forecast or model output beyond 5, 7 to 10 days. Right, talking of 7 to 10 days, we shall be back later on with your week to 10 day video update. That will be coming up on the homepage, Gaz later on this afternoon. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.